I'm sitting down to film this video with absolutely zero plan. I was going to wait until January to do a favourite books of 2025 video, but at this point I've given 10 books 5 stars because I'm a serial 4-star rater, and I don't anticipate in the next, what day is it? It's the 29th. In the next like 3 days I'm going to get another 5-star read. So because I'm not even really reading at all at the minute. So I thought I would sit down and be like, okay, well maybe I can just sit down and talk about my 5-star reads, what I liked about them. And then I was listening to Chapel Roan this morning, and I was listening to the subway, and I was like, this song really slaps. And I saw Chapel at Leeds Fest in the summer, and it was just a really great moment. And I was like, why don't I just do a video where I kind of talk about favourite reads, 2026 goals, maybe a reflection on 2025 goals. I literally haven't even rewatched my previous video that I did last year, which was literally 3 minutes long. So I'm just going off on a whim here. There's absolutely zero prep, but I have limited time to film this. So I thought I would just sit down and go ahead. So I'll start with the 10 books that I gave 5 stars in 2025. Like I said, I'm a serial 4-star rater. I think a lot of the time I think other people have a similar sort of thing where you get a bit apprehensive about whether you're going to give a book 5 stars or not, because you're like, oh, was it a favourite? Was it quite that favourite? But I look back at my list, and a lot of the books that I gave 5 stars, there was just something about it where even if I can objectively look at it and say, oh, you know, maybe there was something about the way it's written that maybe when people won't like, and I can see that, but it doesn't matter because to me it was good. And I think I need to embrace that a lot more. There's one book on here, there's one book I'll mention that I didn't actually give 5 stars, but I thought about it so much throughout the year, and so I'm thinking about maybe just bumping it up. But I'll get to that in a minute. Entered in me here to say I did not in fact mention that book. It was Asunder by Kirsten Hall. I gave it 4.5 because the ending was a little bit rushed for me, and it just kind of felt a little bit like ooh, and I was not quite as satisfied, but I had really enjoyed the questing elements, the soul bonding elements, all of that had made it a really enjoyable read for me. It was my second read of 2025, and I was just kind of like astounded by the ending, and I was like, I need a sequel now. And I actually followed the author's newsletter, and at this point it's not been picked up, and it's kind of unsure, there's no confirmation about whether the sequel will get picked up. And so the more I think about it, if I am going off of just having read that first book and us not ever getting a sequel, is the ending completely flabbergasting because potentially there is no sequel? Absolutely. However, it was a really good time. So honorary 5-star is basically 5-star. So maybe I should change this to the 11 books that I gave 5 stars in 2025. Asunder isn't actually out in the UK until like the 16th of Jan or something like that. I read it from the library, so I'm definitely buying a physical copy when it does come out. And I would recommend, if you are interested in quests, unique world building, again, like kind of soul bonding connections between 2 people who maybe end up having a vested romantic interest in each other, is one for you. To go through my list of 5 stars, this is in kind of no particular order. I don't really know if I would say I have a favourite book of the year. I guess I have. I mean, I liked all these books for different reasons, so I don't know, I'll have to have a think about it. But these are the 10 books that I gave 5 stars in 2025. So first of all, is The Heart by David Sodergren. I read this for Winterween, and I really liked it. It takes place in this Scottish village. There's an old lady, there is like an American real estate person who is coming in and trying to buy up all the land, and this old lady is not budging. She will not move. It's pretty gruesome, it's pretty crude, but there is something that I really enjoy about old ladies who just take no nonsense, and also the monsterness of it all. I really did like the way it was written. It's kind of quite sweet and heartfelt, and it's a book that I just found it really easy to read, and I do kind of recommend as long as you're okay with reading horror. But it's one that I enjoyed, and it was a good start to the year because I only read that in maybe the 2nd or 3rd week of January, so I really enjoyed that one. I reread The West Passage by Jared Pechek this year. I read it last year and I gave it 4-star, but there were so many elements to it that I thought I really did like, and I wanted to give it another chance because I kind of was reading it under rush. It's a bit of a slow start, but it follows these 2 characters who live in this really unique world. We have all these different towers, the red tower, the black tower, the yellow tower, the blue tower and the grey tower, and things at the grey tower have kind of taken a turn for the worse. There is a lot of eldritch elements to this, as is the theme of quite a few of the books on this list. There are illustrations in it that I found really beautiful, and it's a quest story, which is something that I really like. When I did my 5-star predictions videos, I looked at the sort of things that I tend to give 5 stars, and questing was one of those things. And I did give it 5 stars upon reread. It's one that I do really reflect fondly on, and if I'm gonna say that I had a favourite book of the year, I would say that it's probably that one, which is ironic because it was also on my list the year before. And so that's one book that I do kind of really do enjoy, and I really wish that people would read, because I think it's one that, as long as you're interested in questing and kind of slow stories and just plots that are filled with all of these different magical things, it's one that you might enjoy. I then read Little Fish by Casey Plett. This I read for the Trans Rocks Readathon. It follows a trans woman, and essentially it's just a contemporary fiction about her life, about the people around her. It features like sex work, it talks about suicide, and just the rates of suicide in the trans community. It just talks about life essentially. I tend not to read a lot of contemporary fiction, or literary fiction I should say, but if I do, it tends to be queer contemporary literary fiction, and I tend to enjoy it quite a bit. I read a couple of books the year before from Hazel Jane Plant that I really liked as well, and so it's just like a genre that I definitely keep my eye on because it's one that I do find myself going back to. Again, it's a pretty fast read. I think it's under 300 pages, so if you are wanting to read a literary fiction, it's something that I recommend, and is one that I also found quite emotional as well. I definitely remember tearing up towards the end. I also read for the same video A Short History of Trans Misogyny by Jules Gill Peterson, and this one is literally so short. You can tell that I was really unprepared for this video because I physically own some of these, and yet I've just not even got them out of my shelves. It goes through all the different kind of elements. I think it was published in 2022, 2023, and obviously things have changed globally for trans rights, and they've gotten worse, but it does touch upon things like the difference between how trans women are treated compared to trans men, the ways in which different people of colour are treated. It talks about contemporary issues, obviously things like J.K. Rowling as well, and so it's a really nice reflection if you are wanting to get a bit more in tune with contemporary commentary on trans rights. But again, I would just kind of preface it with the fact that obviously it has been published for a few years at this point, and so I wouldn't say it's out of date, but I think that so many things have happened since it has been published that you need to take into consideration everything that's happening in the world and look for other kind of contemporary views by trans rights activists, by just trans people in general, about other things that have kind of cropped up, and keep your eyes on that in the media. I also read But Not Too Bold by Hatchie Pueo this year. This was one that I was really curious about. It is essentially a monster romance. There is a character named Dahlia who works in this house where there is essentially a giant spider lady who is an eldritch lady who keeps eating her brides, and Dahlia ends up becoming the kind of head servant to the giant spider lady, and things start to change and happen. This is one that I was talking about earlier where I don't necessarily think this was the best written book. It is a novella, it is really short, it does focus a lot on the romance. That's obviously the kind of main thing between it, but I really liked it. It is it's one of those things where I'm like, this is written for me, and I'm really looking forward to reading more of Hatchie Pueo's work as well. So it's one that, again, if you're interested in kind of monster romance, I would take a look at, especially because it's sapphic monster romance, and I don't think we see a lot of that, or at least it is out there, but it's one of those things where typically that's not the first thing you see, and you definitely don't see it with spider ladies, and so definitely one that I enjoyed quite a bit this year. I also have Out of the Drowning Deep by AC Wise. This was one that really took me by surprise, and I did not expect to kind of enjoy it at all. And not that, well, maybe that's the wrong way of phrasing it. I had just purchased it. I put it on pre-order from Forbidden Planet because the cover really drew me in, and it was a novella, and it took ages to get to me, so I kind of just forgot about it. And then back in April, I think it was, back in like late spring, I was just in the mood to read some short books, and so I picked it up because it is, again, a novella. It's under 200 pages, and I absolutely blitzed through it, and I absolutely really enjoyed it. It follows our main character who goes who is essentially kind of like a freelance detective, and gets called into this this isolated monastery where the Pope has been murdered, and so the kind of plot follows our scribe who works with the Pope, and it also follows our main character, because there's also a connection to angels here, and so it talks about their past with angels and all of these different things. It's one again that I thought was really well written for a novella, and one that just again took me by surprise about how much I enjoyed it. I would go as far as to say this is probably also a contender for one of my favourite books of the year if I'm kind of ranking them. This is definitely one that is that I put up there, probably in the top 3, along with the next book, which was The Butcher's Masquerade by Matt Dinniman. This is the 5th book in the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. I read all of this series in 4 months and I really enjoyed it. I kind of didn't anticipate just how much I would enjoy it, but I also think that it was, I wouldn't say a crutch, but it's something that I really kind of leaned on earlier in the year to read. I would read one of the books, I'd read a couple of other books and then be like, I need to get back to the Dungeon Crawler Carl series. I need to read the next book in the series. For those of you who don't know, the series follows Carl and also Princess Donut, his cat, or his ex-girlfriend's cat, and they essentially get into this dungeon because this alien invasion had essentially attacked planet Earth, and the dungeon crawl essentially needs for them to pass each level, and they can, it's kind of like a video game. There's an AI who is giving them, level ups, who's giving them special items and everything like that, but it's also a reality show, and this is getting broadcast to all of these other alien conglomerate places, and there is a lot of politics that are actually going on. When you read the first book, it is just kind of, it's fun and games. You could leave it at the first book and not really delve in any deeper, but the deeper that you go, the more you realise that this is such an extensive world. There is so much actually going on, and I think book 5 was one of those books that actually just kind of really hit the mark in terms of that kind of wider politics of what's going on in the universe. The Butcher's Masquerade is the first time that we have kind of outside forces coming into the dungeon to try and kill the crawlers, and so the stakes are higher than they have been in previous books, which is already pretty high because this dungeon is trying to kill them. It is a game show where they are kind of destined to die, and so Carl and Donut and everyone else that they're friends with really start to join forces against all of these other people. There's a masquerade element, like a masquerade ball element, which I think is also really fun as well, and I think that this book is kind of the peak of the series for me. Book 6 and book 7 are both quite long. I think book 6 is more of kind of an emotional hitter. I don't think book 6 lived up to book 5 as much. I think it's kind of hard to live up to that one, but book 7 is another book where things really kind of shit hit the fan essentially, and I'm really curious to see how the rest of the series is going to play out now that I'm all up to date with it. Another book that I gave 5 stars is White Trash Warlock by David Slayton. This one again really took me by surprise. I just happened to read it on the train to Leeds Fest, funnily enough. It is about our main character who essentially is a warlock. His family, his mom and his brother didn't believe about his powers, and it ends up that his brother's wife ends up possessed, and so they kind of get drawn all together and they're trying to solve this situation. And there's also wider things going on with the question about our main character Adam's dad. He gets a love interest and there is a connection between the two of them, which is one of the things I really enjoyed. It's kind of this almost the kind of bonding element that happened there, and there's also a lot of mythical creatures in this. There's also elves and dwarves as well. It was one that I literally finished in a train journey. I really wasn't anticipating that I would blast through it as fast as I did, and I want to continue with this series in next year. Then I gave Paladin's Faith by T. Kingfisher 5 stars. This is one I've vlogged about, so I won't talk too much about it. It's the 4th book in the Paladins series, the Saint of Steel series, where our main kind of cast of characters are all paladins whose god has died, and they are all kind of finding their way in the world. The first book I really quite liked. The second and third book I thought were okay. I didn't enjoy them as much. The 4th book I really liked because I think it kind of stood out from the rest in the sense that it took on espionage and there was a quest element to it, which again a few of my favourite things, and I think that it really focused on things outside of the romance as well, which I know a few people in the reviews had said they didn't enjoy as much, but it was the fact that there was more to the book than just the romance, even though I would go as far as saying it is a romantasy book that really kind of made it one of my favourites in the series, and I am curious to see how the rest of that series is going to play out as well, especially because I did read now and confirmed that Marcus's book is next, so that one's going to be an emotional hard hitter, and then we've got our 2 female paladins as well. And so that series is one I'm also keeping my eyes out for when the next book in that series is released. And my final 5-star of the year was The Midnight Shift by Chon Seon-ran. This book is translated fiction. It follows a detective who essentially is dealing with this case which ends up being related to vampires, and there is kind of like a dual point of view where we switch back and forth between our main character, who is the detective, another character who is timeline is set in the past, but she has interactions with our kind of main detective character in the present day, and then another character as well, where we see kind of some things that are going on in the wider world. It's one that I found really easy to read. I'm really keen to read more translated fiction. I know that was one of my goals last year, I think, to continue to read diversely, and I never really read as diversely as I want to in terms of countries. I guess I tend to read majority queer books in terms of like the diversity of all my reading, but I could always do with reading more books from authors from different countries, and so I want to continue that into the next year. It's why for my Reddit bingo I only read books by BIPOC authors to fill the squares, because it's again pushing me in a situation where I need to do my best to seek out books that are going to fit all of those prompts. And so this one I just found, again, there is a theme here: detectives, a supernatural element. It's one that I just really enjoyed at the end of the day, and there's a couple of other books from the same author that are either in the process of being translated or to be released soon, I think, and so I'm definitely keeping my eye out for that, and also just keeping my eye out for more translated work in general. We are lucky to obviously be in a position where so many more pieces of fiction are being translated and they're getting so much more accessible, and so that is something that I definitely need to prioritise going forward. Those are my favourite books of the year. Like I said, I would say top 3 probably The West Passage, The Butcher's Masquerade, and also Out of the Drowning Deep. However, I think I'm pretty flexible. I enjoyed them all, which is why I gave them all 5 stars. I haven't updated my stats for December in my spreadsheet, but I think I gave about 40 something books 4 stars and a similar amount 3 stars, which kind of gives you the indication about how many 4 stars that I read, which again is not something I'm mad about. I am glad that I've read that many books that I enjoyed, but I definitely do 4-star over 5-star books. There are other things that I thought I would just mention in this video, kind of in a like superlatives sense. One of them being favourite covers. 2 covers that really stand out to me is The Works of Vermin by Hiran Ayers and also The Shipwright and the Shroud Weaver by Rafael Torrubia. Both of these were books that I didn't enjoy as much as I wanted to, which is very unfortunate, but they are 2 covers that I really do like, and I will continue to be a sucker for buying books that have brilliant covers and then probably not enjoy them as much as I want to. In terms of music, like I said, The Subway by Chappell Roan is definitely up there. These are a few other albums that I very much enjoyed in 2025. In terms of 2026 reading goals, I wasn't going to make a set video about it because I kind of think my goals are always the same. I want to continue to read diversely, I want to continue being motivated to read and just read in general, and I want to try and finish all the challenges that I kind of commit myself to, and those are things that I think that I will continue to try and do throughout the year. Where I'm sitting at the moment, I've read 134 books this year. I'm thinking I'm going to try and get one more, just because last year I read 165, and that means combined I read 300 books in 2 years, which is absolutely wild. And so I'm setting my goal next year for 100 books again. I definitely had a little bit more of a dip this year due to personal circumstances, and also I ended up changing jobs, and so life kind of got in the way in that sense. 100 books a year is something that I think is really achievable for me at this point going forward. I think it's something that I will probably set my reading goal as going forward, and so I'm really keen to get reading for next year. I've got a new reading journal. I'm excited to journal in a different way. As I said in one of my previous videos, I'm doing reading journaling a bit different this year, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to stick with that and continue to still write in a reading journal, and then also in my big reading spreadsheet as well. And I'm also just excited to continue making some videos. I will have been posting videos for over a year at the point that this is published, which is really weird. I kind of didn't know whether I would keep this up as long as I had. It was something that I really had to find the confidence to do in the first place. My kind of goal going forward, I know that I think I said in my previous reading goals video, was to do 2 videos a month. I kind of am sitting between 1 and 2 videos a month. I think I did stick with 2 videos a month for like the first 6 months of the year, but again, life got in the way, and so towards the end of the year I definitely dropped down to about 1 a month. I kind of just kind of go wherever the wind takes me. I'm not particularly kind of fussed if I don't post 2 videos a month. I think 1 video is more than enough as well for someone who is not doing this full time, who is just kind of, you know, filming on a phone, figuring things out. And so I want to obviously continue posting videos and hopefully maybe build more of a community here. So if you have watched this, thank you for watching, and happy 2026 to all. Let's continue to read more good books in the next year.